I would like to welcome today a special guest with us, Professor David Crowther, an esteemed scholar and president of Social Responsibility Research Network. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Professor.
Thank you.
Can you just give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Yes, I started my working life as an accountant. I didn't particularly want to be an accountant, but I kept getting promoted and ended up as divisional managing director of a multinational company. Then I did a psychology degree, hoping that would get me away from accounting, and it didn't. But I then decided I wanted to do a PhD. I joined the university as a lecturer in accounting, unfortunately, did a PhD, and then when I became a professor in the UK system, you get asked what title you would like to have. And I said I wanted to be Professor of Corporate Social Responsibility. And I didn't realise at the time, but I was the first person in the world to have that title.
Interesting.
And then it kind of went from there.
Okay, that's very interesting. So you're a pioneer.
Not intentionally, it just happened.
Accidental pioneer. Well, I just wanted you to explain the concept of social responsibility in the context of AI, of artificial intelligence.
Okay, well, firstly, let me say social responsibility affects everything we do all the time. We have, or should have, an obligation to behave in a socially responsible manner and make decisions accordingly. And that means we should do the same when we make use of AI. I should say at the start that my view of AI is that it is a technique to assist us. It doesn't supplant people.
You said it assists us, it doesn't
Supplant doesn't replace people.
replace people. Okay. So would you look at it in the concept of it's more beneficial or more riskier when it comes to humans?
It has the potential to be either. It's how we choose to use it that is the thing. And that's the same with all technology. If you listen to an Emerald podcast, which myself and a couple of colleagues from around the world did a few months ago about technological myopia, we all agreed that technology is neither good nor bad. It's how we choose to use it that makes it like that.
I agree. I believe humans are the ones that are the risks and not AI itself. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
You stated in your paper that AI systems are confined with their programmed logic.
Yes.
And I've noticed a growing dependence on these systems, and there's no transparency, which leads to ChatGPT when it comes to give you the result. It's a because I said so approach. So
Yes.
how much will AI influence decision making in this case? Do we blindly trust AI?
At the moment, it seems to be a lot of people do blindly trust AI. I think it must be making better decisions. The reality is it's not making better decisions. And if we trust AI, we're just being lazy. AI is a tool that can help us make decisions, can help us make more informed decisions, but we still have the responsibility for the decisions.
True, I agree. Then how can we balance, because we keep asking for transparency, right? But
Yeah.
then if companies give us transparency, then they're risking intellectual property rights and their trade secrets. So how can we find the balance between transparency and property rights and intellectual rights?
This is an argument that's been going on for at least 50 years. It started with companies providing their financial accounts and making those public, and the argument was if they disclosed too much information, they would be giving away their commercial advantage and that sort of thing. And the better companies realised that if they disclosed more information, it actually helped them rather than harmed them. It improved their financial standing, it improved their relationship with their stakeholders. But over time, the amount of information disclosed by companies has continued to increase, and that relationship has continued to hold. The more disclosed, the better. So what is the benefit of trying to hide what you're doing? If you try to hide what you're doing, it immediately thinks, what should we worry about? If there's nothing to worry about, there's no need to hide behind this argument about transparency and such like.
Okay, that's interesting. But then what about the competition? I mean, does that mean that you want it to be open source AI? That everyone can, the information is out there, anyone can see it, anyone can use it, anyone can develop it?
Well, if we're realistic, if one person has managed to develop it, it won't be very long before a few more people manage to replicate it. So what does it matter, really?
I agree. It's a very interesting argument. Now, there's this post I came across, and it was very interesting because I'm from the Middle East. So someone wrote, I asked ChatGPT to create a close-up image of a woman from the Middle East. And ChatGPT, despite several attempts, kept giving the same result of a woman with a hijab or a headscarf. The same exact result. So then it kept failing, and then it said, ChatGPT, it seems there may be bias in the model towards associating certain features or context with specific cultural elements. So it admitted that it was biased. So imagine if biasness is not only in context of cultures, but in granting visas, in university acceptance, in bank loans. So how do you see this? I mean, how can you imagine, like, the algorithms are controlling all of this? So how do you think this will impact our society, and what would be the solution?
Okay, well, there's two parts to my answer here. The first part is to say AI is not biased. This is exactly one of the main problems with the use of AI. It's something that I wrote about in my recent paper. It was published, The Mediocrity of AI, which explains why it is only ever mediocre. That is, AI takes modal values as correct. The modal value being the most common value. And of course, the most common depiction of a Middle Eastern woman is wearing a hijab. So it picks that. And the nature of how AI works is, once it's picked it, then the amount of data showing a woman with a hijab has increased. And so over time, it references itself and never goes anywhere. So that is the first part of my answer.
But can I answer this one? Because I interviewed Microsoft before regarding the biasness, and I'm not sure who gave me this answer before, but they said that you can never have zero bias in any system. More or less because we're humans and we're the ones that are inputting the data. So no matter what, you cannot have zero bias.
Yeah, well, yes. Let me give you the second part of my answer.
Okay. You can mitigate it, but you can't have zero bias.
Yeah, well, second part of my answer deals with that issue.
Okay.
Which is, about 40 years ago, I did my MBA. I was one of the first people in this country to do an MBA, and I had to do a research project as part of the MBA for my dissertation, and I looked at bias in granting of credit to women. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Was there a bias in the way were women discriminated against in granting of credit? It should be no surprise to find out I did find, yes, women were discriminated against, but I also found that women discriminated against women more than men did.
Okay. Women discriminate against women.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So yes, we're all biased. There's no point in pretending otherwise. So is it possible that AI can be without bias? well, we all think we ourselves are unbiased and everybody else is biased.
Exactly.
So that's the answer, basically, isn't it?
Yes, yes. After all, it is human intelligence and
Yeah,
machine
exactly.
learning, and we're trying
Well,
to, yeah,
it's programmed by people who've got their own biased preconceptions.
exactly.
But if we don't like those preconceptions, then it's biased. If we like them, it's reasonable.
I understand. Yes, yes. Okay, so what are the potential benefits and risks of AI for society as a whole? Because I came across an article from the UN and they were afraid of digital colonization in Africa because of, back to our conversation about biasness, it's more westernized when it comes to the algorithm of ChatGPT.
Again, it's what we choose to not let happen, but what we choose to make happen, isn't it? How we choose to use AI. Basically, that I find the term AI slightly irritating because the intelligence bit does not exist. AI is just improved data processing, and data processing has been improving for the last 60 years, hasn't it? And it continues to increase. So we've got better data processing capability. What we choose to do with it is down to us, not down to computers. Computers are not going to tell us what to do with it. This idea of AI taking over the world and such like is just nonsense.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree. I don't think it will take over the world, but I do believe that it will change or create a new culture.
It suits, let me put it this way, it suits lazy people because it gives them a recommendation. Not only that, but it gives them a legitimation for making that decision. Oh, well, AI said this is the best thing to do, so this is what I'm going to do. And it saves me thinking at the same time. Well, if we choose to be lazy, then this is what happens. Sadly, that's something I would apply to virtually every politician in the world.
But hence the "because I said so" quote of ChatGPT, where you believe anything that they say and you don't search after it, you don't go over the information, you just believe it.
If you want to, you can do. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What role can AI play in addressing global challenges such as climate change or poverty?
Okay, well, let's take climate change for a start. Obviously, AI can process vast amounts of data, and it can analyze weather patterns and predict things that are likely to happen. At the same time, it can cause climate change because, let's face it, the thing about AI that nobody wants to talk about, it generates a huge amount of heat, data processing does.
Yes.
And that's not good for our climate.
But Microsoft did start putting its data centers below the sea or below the ocean because of this problem.
Yes, and what does that do? It causes damage to the ocean life near to coasts, and the repercussions of damaged ocean life is probably going to be far more serious than heat.
Yeah, I agree. I know that every 5 to 50 prompts of ChatGPT that we do, it's as if you're consuming a bottle of water. And as soon as I found out this information, whenever I write a prompt, I think twice, is it necessary to find information with this prompt? It's scary.
Yeah, it's only scary if we don't recognize it and don't do something about it. But we can do something about it.
Yes, when they come to develop the system and so forth, yeah. Okay.
My next paper is going to be exactly about that topic, actually.
Okay, I'm then definitely interested to read that. How can we ensure that AI development and deployment benefit everyone, not just a select few? Because I had an interview with the Vice Minister of Communications and Technology, and he was afraid of the digital divide. So how do you think this would affect, in this case, its development and deployment? Will this benefit everyone or just a select few?
Nothing benefits everybody, does it? That's unrealistic. we should try to make things as spread out the benefit as far as possible. But again, that's human choice. That's nothing to do with AI. That's how we choose to use it, how we choose to apply it, or how the decision makers choose to do that.
I agree. We all go back to the same concept of it's the humans that we're afraid of and not AI.
Absolutely, yes. We're the biggest risk to ourselves, nothing else.
True, true. Okay, the next question. What are your thoughts on the ethical implications of using AI for tasks like autonomous weapons or facial recognitions when it comes to surveillance? Because I know certain countries, they're already using it for surveillance.
Well, as far as surveillance is concerned, I don't know what it's like where you live, but in the UK, there's cameras surveying what happens if you're outside just about anywhere in the country, apart from out on top of the mountains.
Yes.
And it doesn't really bother us. Facial recognition systems have been shown to be highly suspect, shall we say. They're not very effective. AI might make them slightly more effective, but that's all. It doesn't get rid of the problems. It doesn't get rid of human bias. As for autonomous weapons, well, I'm sure, you're probably too young to remember the song 99 Red Balloons, which was about the fact that a load of balloons in West Germany nearly started an international war because it nearly caused Russia to fire off a few nuclear missiles. So can AI systems do worse than that? Or again, it's how we choose to do it.
Including the social scoring system, where now they're
Absolutely.
using AI for social scoring. Yeah. Okay. What role can AI play in addressing global challenge? Oh, sorry. Another question. What kind of regulations and governance frameworks do we need to ensure responsible development and use of AI? Especially when it comes to the governmental role.
Right. Well, my view about regulation is about all regulation. That is, the best firms, the best developers, the best people set the standards, regulations, follow along to put that into more general practice. So regulation does not. It eventually prevents minimal standards, improves minimal standards, but it doesn't set the standard. The best people set those standards. That doesn't change.
But I do believe that people, if there's no laws or regulations, it's kind of like a jungle. So there needs to be something that people abide by, unless there be a penalty.
Most people know how to behave in a socially responsible manner without any laws, and they choose to do so because that's the best way of surviving yourself and protecting your family. That's been the case for the last 100,000 years. So laws don't make a difference to that.
When you come and drive in Cairo, you will understand what I'm trying to say here in this concept regarding laws and regulations and penalties.
I've driven in Casablanca, and Cairo's no worse than that. So
it's much worse. When you come, you will figure out what I'm trying to say.
Look, you have law. We have the same problem. We have laws, and we have people ignoring them. So
because there are no sanctions. That's what I'm saying. So if we know that there are sanctions, which lately now there are sanctions in driving, it has become much better, the situation.
But people think, I'm not going to get caught. I can do it. This is human nature.
True. Okay, so the next question was very interesting because this was a huge discussion that took 3 hours at the Ministry of Justice, and I attended this discussion. The answer would seem very simple, but it's not that simple. And the question is, who should be responsible for ensuring the ethical use of AI? The developers, the companies, the government, or individuals? I mean, the simple answer would be all of them, right?
Look, we all as individuals are responsible for what we do and what we let other people do on our behalf. In other words, what we let our government do and that kind of thing, and what we let developers do. We're all responsible. We mostly abdicate responsibility and say it's up to somebody else to control that, because I'm not going to. But if we've got a world we're not happy with, it's our own fault. But I say that frequently when I'm in conferences and everybody says, "Oh, not me. I'm not guilty. It's all them other people." We don't take responsibility for ourselves.
So, for example, for the self-driving car, who's responsible for the accident if it does an accident?
If it doesn't, if it has an accident because it's not programmed properly, the responsibility for faulty programming is with the manufacturer. The responsibility for buying that car and using it is with the person who bought it and used it.
And the one that signed for it to go, out in the market would then be the government.
Yeah. But everybody's responsible. We all got to accept our share of responsibility, not say it's entirely somebody else's problem.
Yes.
It's never entirely somebody else's fault.
Yes. And the common question is, how can we ensure that international cooperation and collaboration occur when addressing the ethical implications of AI? I know already that there are 28 countries, they gathered together in the UK for the Bletchley Declaration, where they're trying to kind of standardize the AI laws and regulations. But then when it comes to ethical implications, do you think it should be also unified, standardized?
Well, that sounds great in theory. The problem is we don't all have the same view of what ethically is right and wrong. Yes. So we cannot agree on what is ethical behaviour, because, as far as I'm concerned, I'm ethical, and if anybody else does something different, they're being unethical. But that's not the way they think. And that's the same when we talk about countries. And having said that, you might get a group of countries to agree, but then what's Russia going to do?
What is, sorry, going to do?
What's Russia going to do?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so, it's great in theory. Reality is, it's ethical if we collectively want it to be, and only to the extent that we collectively insist on it being.
So it is kind of, the question of ethicality is subjective.
Oh yeah, of course it is. It always is. When I teach, I start by I teach accounting still. Despite I always start by I always have an ethics lecture and start by saying, can anybody tell me something that is always ethical, or no, always unethical? It's not possible.
I can't think of something, no.
No, because everyone starts off, well, you shouldn't kill people. Okay, what about war? What about protecting your family, etc., etc.? It's always contextual. So there's no uniform ethical philosophy that applies to everybody in every situation.
And I think that's the same case cultural-wise, and your upbringing. The question of ethics is different from one country to the other, one culture to the other.
Yeah, of course, it's all, yeah. Okay. It's all contextual, absolutely.
Okay. Very interesting insights, Professor. My upcoming question is, what are your predictions for the future of AI, and what are the key challenges and opportunities that we need to be prepared for? Because I feel like right now it's just like we're in a cell and it's about to grow and multiply, like the dinosaur era. We're just in the beginning. So how do you see this going? I mean, it's improving very fast. It's very rapid. It's revolutionizing changes. I mean, ChatGPT now has a Sora. I think that's how it's pronounced, app. So it's like 3,000 apps are being produced every month. So how do you see the future of AI if we're like jumping with this leap?
The reality is people will realize in a fairly short space of time that all AI is another increase in data processing capability and react accordingly. And then we'll get another explosion in data processing facility, and AI will be yesterday's news.
That's true, but the thing is, data is always from the past. So AI always has information from the past. It can never predict the future. I mean, when there was COVID-19, AI got faulty answers, all of it, because it wasn't programmed for such a virus and for such changes in human behavior. So it gave false predictions.
I would say the people in charge made false decisions based upon information. But if they made different decisions themselves, they had the information to make different decisions. You can't blame AI for any of that. You've got to blame decision makers.
Yes, but if there's certain changes in the economy, sudden changes, or in the environment, or in any case, or natural disasters, how would AI know about it? It's being programmed from data from the past, unless it's super intelligent, which we're nowhere near that.
Oh, well, no, it's not quite that simple. If you take a natural disaster, it has certain features that are similar to things that have happened previously, and you can make a prediction that what happened last time will happen similarly, but slightly differently because of the different set of combination of circumstances. So it can make a prediction. But if we actually look at AI's predictions, the last figure I heard says that the typical example, it's about 70% correct. Well, 70% correct sounds to me like an educated guess, nothing more than that. And that's all we've got.
Yes.
So, but we need to realise that and not think it's giving us answers.
I agree. I completely agree. And can you discuss the potential? Humans, we know they're not intelligent enough to compete with AI. How will this affect education and the job industry, especially in education?
Let me take exception for the first part of that to start off with. That humans are not intelligent enough to compete with AI. AI has the ability to quickly process vast amounts of data. That doesn't make it intelligent. That makes it a good calculator, basically. It doesn't make decisions. It enables us to make decisions. And the theory is that with more information, we make better decisions. Although that is disputed by lots of people with evidence. We don't necessarily make better decisions from this large data processing capability than we would from smaller amounts. So
how come?
How come?
Yeah.
Well, that's what the research evidence says.
Because I thought the more information I have, usually when I feel like the information has become redundant, I manage to make my decision. I was like, okay, so that's the decision I need to make. So I didn't know that the less information I have, the better decision I could end up making.
No, it's not. I'm not saying the less information, the better. But it gets to a point where more information does not enable you to make a better decision.
Okay.
You just make the same decision, but with more data.
Yes.
Sorry, what was the second part? Was it the future of education?
The job industry and in education.
As far as education is concerned, AI, well, even as far ago as when I was at school, we were using things like language labs to help us learn languages. So computers didn't really exist when I was at school. Not at that sort of low level, certainly, but we used technology to assist us. And ever since the time of Socrates, students have been looking for ways to shortcut the system and cheat and get an advantage. AI just provides that. It doesn't educate people better. It provides lazy access to partial information. So we need to go back to what education is really about, which is teaching people to think properly, to make informed decisions, and take into account the consequences. So in that respect, it's beneficial for AI because it's beneficial for education because it will make us refocus upon what the purpose of education actually is.
But do
in
you
terms
think?
of in terms of threats to jobs and such like. Well, 200 years ago, about 200 years ago, 250 years ago, but it was just at the start of the Industrial Revolution, and gangs of people used to roam around the country, certainly around the areas where I live, and smash equipment because it thought it was destroying their livelihood and such like. And surprise, surprise, it didn't. What's the difference? It's exactly the same now.
I 100% agree, but don't you think that the education system needs to adapt? Because so far, Austin in America, they're adapting their education system. They're making students learn through AI for 2 hours, and then the other 6 hours is more related to their way of life, from the humanitarian aspects. And South
One,
Korea
one,
also is trying to do so. It's still all an experiment.
one thing that the lockdowns taught us is that education by technology, by people using computers to educate themselves, is not as effective. And what it gave us is a lot of people who weren't socially adapted to mix with groups of people and missed the finer points of education. So you got a lot of partially educated people who've learned facts but not been educated. So that's what we learned from what we should have learned, and the Americans also should have learned from these lockdowns. So we need to take that into account and be realistic.
Yes, I can't wait to see the results in general, but I do agree with you the concept of collectivity, that together you learn more and faster and you grow better than just being
and
as an individual.
You learn from each other as well as from your teacher.
Exactly, yes. In your opinion, what are the most important steps we can take today to ensure that AI is developed and used responsibly for the benefit of the society?
Right, well, if I'm going to be controversial, the most important step we can take is stop panicking and talking about AI and just accept that it's just an improvement to data processing capability and nothing more than that.
Simple, but to the point, and you're right.
It makes life easier in some respects where we need to process a lot of data, that kind of thing. It's got benefits, and our lives change, adapt as a result of that. But that's no different to anything else that's happened for the last 50,000 years.
But I do feel that there will be some certain inequality or discrimination or certain societal issues and divide because of AI, especially. Yes.
There'll be some that that happens anyway, not because of AI. That's just blaming AI rather than blaming the people.
Okay. I feel like AI is your son, and you're like defending him so much, but you are right.
Me? You think I'm defending AI? Quite the opposite. I'm absolutely sick of all the nonsense people talk about AI. It's nothing. It's just data processing. That's all it is. Nothing to do with intelligence. It's not going to take over the world. It's not going to make us redundant. In fact, if you looked at my last paper, which is the mediocrity of AI, I start from somebody who talks about AI stating that he's scared, and it ends by saying the only thing he's got to be scared about is loss of royalties from writing this nonsense. That's my view of AI.
Yes, I read your paper. You were talking about the rational aspect and the emotional aspect of AI. I liked it. It was a good one. Yes. Do you have any finishing statements regarding this topic?
I thought I'd made my feelings quite clear. That I'm convinced that in 5 years' time, it will be a non-subject.
I think more of like in 20 years.
Well, okay, maybe we'll compromise on 10 years.
Finally, I know that you're organizing a conference in Egypt in September. It will
Yes.
be a pleasure to see you in the physical space and not in the virtual space. Can you just give me a brief description about this conference and what is it about and what call for papers are you looking for? Certain details?
Well, officially, it's the International Conference on Corporate Social Responsibility, and they've been running for 20 years now. But in reality, what I've always found is that in every location, there's one or two people concerned with these subjects, but not groups of people. So if you provide an opportunity for people to get together and discuss ideas, you get a lot of fresh ideas, you get a lot of joint work, and we get cross-fertilization of ideas from different parts of the world and that kind of thing. And that's the whole basis of the conference. We seek to encourage people to express their own ideas, share with others, develop new ideas, and that benefits the world as a whole. That's the whole purpose of the conference. And of course, as academics, we encourage them to get published and explain how to do so.
And are the call for papers specifically on social responsibility?
Well, every conference has a theme, but it's got to be something to do with social responsibility or sustainability. But let's face it, there's very little that isn't concerned with aspects of that.
So it was a pleasure, Professor David. It was very useful, this whole session, and I'm looking forward to meeting you and to reading your papers on AI and social responsibility, and it was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you and talk to you.